Thank you, Steph. To order. First item on the agenda is the roll call. Ian Griffiths.
Yeah.
David Siegel.
Present.
Ron Dane.
Present.
Justin.
Excused.
Susan.
Also excused.
And Mr. Mark Stoyer. You're on mute, Mark.
Okay, thank you. I was just listed as Veronica Corpus Dax on the agenda, so I think we know that I'm not.
I caught that, but welcome to the Landmarks Commission,
Yeah,
Mark. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
It's good to be back.
So next item on the agenda would be the approval of the agenda for May 20th. I think it was all in the packet. Does anybody have any corrections or comments or changes for the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to move item number 2 to item number 1 on the agenda.
Okay, I hear a motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
This is David. I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of revising tonight's agenda to reverse items 2 and 1? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item D. It's the approval of the minutes from the April 13th, 2020 meeting of the Landmarks Commission. Those minutes are in the packet. I assume everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, edits, changes to those minutes?
Do I need to abstain because I wasn't there? So
I'll
Thank
make a
you.
motion to approve.
I'll second the motion. Any other discussion on the minutes from April 13th? So voice vote to approve those minutes. Ian?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so motion carries. Next item is regular business, item E, and first thing that we're looking at then is Certificate of Appropriateness 20-08, consideration with possible action on a design review for a storefront remodel at 115 North Adams Street. Jason Flatt, would you want to give us the staff synopsis for this one?
Sure. An alt tab hell, hang on, where'd it go? So you all have received some drawings, and one of those pair of drawings is more recent than another pair of the drawings. I'm not entirely sure how best to steer you to the most recent pair of drawings, except that well, it's 2 pages of drawing. Second page, the windows up in the second story look like 1/1 panes instead of like a gridded set of windows. And at the bottom right, it's labeled sheet A2.01, not to be confused with the other A2.01 with the different windows. But on this sheet, you'll see in the elevation notes, begins with A101, A102, and goes all the way through A137. These are the proposed changes to the building. I have written up for you each of those changes with landmark staff recommendations. That was sent out in your packet, and I guess I would propose that we go through these one at a time. Does that suit you?
sure.
If we're going through them one at a time, what will be the end result? Are we voting on the project as a whole, or are there a bunch of individual items we're looking at?
That's up to you. There are a bunch of individual items. You may or may not approve of them as an entire collection. My hunch is that you probably will. But if this was another application, any one of these items would, fill up an application and a discussion. So we got a lot.
I think that this should be taken as one thing. If there's anyone who has any specific questions on an individual item, I think those should be. But I don't know that it warrants going through each individual thing unless you guys did not read your packets ahead of time. Then I think that we should. But I think that most of you are pretty good about reading ahead of time. So unless there are specific questions, I can also bring up that PDF, Jason, if you want me to have it on the screen here.
Sure.
Stephanie, before we begin, I guess I forgot, I also have to mention to everybody on the commission, I've got a conflict with this project, Steam. Do you want me to still run the process, Stephanie, or does the vice chairperson need to do that?
Yep, Ron will be running the voting. So at this point forward for this item, Paul should only be used as a reference as an applicant and not as a member of the commission.
Fair enough. Okay, Stephanie, I spoke to you earlier today, and I took a field trip to this building, and I took this packet with me, and I looked at everything, and I do agree with you that it should be voted on one as one item. Jason, I saw in there where you had said that, excuse me, there was a couple of changes that they may wish to take on, and if so, that they would have to reapply for those couple specific things again. And it sounded like the architect had no issue with doing that whatsoever, that because there's federal and state money involved here, that indeed they were going to follow all of our guidelines. Is that correct? Jason?
Federal and state money.
Yeah, there was some grant money, right? Correct?
I don't know if there's grant money involved. I know that they're going after the tax credits, which means SHPO will have to approve of everything on behalf of National Park Service. If SHPO does or doesn't approve of everything, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to approve or disapprove of the same things. You can take a different position on anything. So,
Right. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say about? I mean, because when I went through the packet, it seemed like everything was in order here. I mean, and the recommendations pretty much on every item was approval, correct?
This is David. I do have one question about one item, which is the tile work in the front entryway and staff's recommendation, or rather pointing out that the proposed tile is inappropriate for that location. I'd like from staff on exactly what that is referring to.
So the architect likely knows more than I do on this, but the architect specified a doll tile, 1-inch hex tile. And I went to the website and I just pulled up the manufacturer's information, and it says that it's got an X there for application and exterior flooring. Maybe it's okay there. I don't really know. It's okay in the shower, so.
Well put. Yikes! I mean, I'm kind of at a loss. Is there anyone out there that has an issue with not approving this? Is there anything that's, Ian, like for example, anything that you see that would make you not want to approve this project?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, there's nothing on here. I think the exterior floor tile is probably a freeze thaw issue that, whilst in a shower application, it's going to get wet as it is outside. It's likely not going to freeze on the inside of the home. So I'm guessing that that's probably where it is. I guess the other question would be if it is sufficiently non-slip. I presume it is because it has a floor, wall, countertop application, so I think it's probably fine. But maybe when we open the floor, Jen can talk to that. I believe she's on the line. So no, there's nothing about this application that I disapprove of. I guess one thing that I do want to bring forward to the commission is you've been hearing from me over the last month by email on the level of application that we should have and what would be my recommendation is that this sets the bar for what we should expect for this type of project. This makes it so much easier to try to discuss and review and approve when you have all of the information. When we're lacking that information, it makes it extremely difficult. We are making assumptions. We have to visit the site. And so to me, this is a model proposal that we should consider for other applications going forward.
Well said. Anyone else have anything else to add to this?
Mark?
Mark?
Thanks, Vice Chair. No, from what I saw too, it looked like a very thorough project. It's, very well drawn up, some good attention to detail. Like I said, it'll take me a little while to catch up on all the little nuances of some of these projects, but I'm very much into the historical ethic of this community. So I was looking at it and I was fairly impressed with what I saw. Thank you.
So then do we make a motion here to go back to regular business and take a vote? I mean, would that be the next logical?
We're already in regular business, so we can just do a vote if someone has a motion. If you want to honor Jason's recommendations, I would just ask that you make that motion with staff recommendations, so that way those can be upheld and then reflected in the minutes.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve as presented, taking into account Jason's notes and recommendations on this application.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so then we'll go through and vote. All in favor, Ian?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye, yes.
I also vote aye, since I'm right here. Who else can't I see?
This is David. I vote yes.
Okay. And is anyone else out there?
This is Paul, I'm abstaining.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So 4, then the motion carries. Is that correct? Okay. So motion carries. Paul, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jennifer Lurkey, for attending the meeting today as well. Next item is item E1, Certificate of Appropriateness 20-07, consideration with possible action on a design review for new windows and doors at 235 North Broadway. This is a project that we saw last month. Jason, you want to take us through this again?
I haven't learned anything since last month. I think that one of our hesitations was some of the storefront transom windows appear to be historic, and a lot of the transom windows are still covered up with some sort of metal siding. So we really didn't have enough information to go on to approve replacing all those windows when we weren't sure what we were starting with.
I was assuming that they were going to be on the call today. They sounded like they were, but I don't see them here. He had followed up with me saying that they had been working with some window company and that they were going to be doing some sort of rehab or saving of the leaded windows that we had discussed, but I didn't get any details on that. And I also have not heard from Skip whether or not SHPO has any review authority here. So aside from the emails that we sent you, which had a little bit more detail, that's all that we've gotten from the applicant. So without them on the line, I'm not really sure what else there is to discuss.
I guess I concur with all of that. I think one thing of note is that the last application had a very similar condition with the transom windows above and the replacement of the windows below. Again, I think a clear detail explaining how that's going to be done on both applications, are quite different here. So I'm looking for more detail. I am very hesitant to approve it without an additional level of detail on this.
My comment is simply, it doesn't feel like anything has changed from the applicant in the last several weeks. Nothing has changed. If we had additional information, but I don't know why our situation hasn't improved, and with the lack of new information or something that's changed, I don't see how we can take any action on this tonight.
I have a question for those of you that are in this, closer to this business. It's been a month since we asked for more detail. Is it reasonable or unreasonable to expect them to have had that, to have created that in the course of a month?
It would be reasonable to expect that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just listening to the comments, I kind of agree as well. I was wondering, is there much of a history with this applicant in the past? I mean, I haven't been in the flow for a couple of years, but as far as this particular project or structure, has there been much that has been asked for in the past?
Yeah, they asked for a similar application, I think last year, within the time that the Landmarks Commission has been established. And they were going with tax credits. So it was something that was reviewed by SHPO as well. So we reviewed it and I think approved it with some of those similar conditions. But with this round, they changed some of the aspects they were looking at, but the details that they gave us weren't very complete. So at last meeting, we just asked them to come back with more detailed information because some of the lines weren't lining up for the drawings that they showed us. They didn't have a good game plan for the transoms or what was existing under some of the wood siding that they had covering some of the windows. So we just didn't have enough information and they were supposed to supply that for this meeting. Via email, they've been very communicative, but I didn't get any more information than what was shared with you all. So what I have is what you have. I know that they've been working on stuff, but maybe they just need some more time to put it all together.
Well, I don't think it looks complete enough either. So if we do not approve this, then, like I said, I would hate to see them just throw something up there and they would be non-conforming then, correct?
Well, they would get fined for doing work without a COA. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
do we have to take action? Do we have to take an action to vote on this, or are we simply taking no action? What is our step? Table it for the next meeting?
If you table it, it can be tabled indefinitely until we find that there's enough information provided. Because typically the hold would be for a specific amount of time. Tabling the item just gives us the leeway to work with them offline until we feel they have enough information to bring forward.
So I would make a motion that we do that we table this item and allow the applicant to continue to work with staff to provide us the information we need.
I would second that motion.
Any other discussion? Then I guess we've got to vote. Ian?
Aye to tabling it.
David?
Yes.
Ron? You're on mute, Ron. You're still on mute.
There we go. I concur. I agree.
Mark?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So motion carries unanimously. On to item F, informational, staff level certificate of appropriateness applications.
We received no staff level COA since our last meeting.
Okay. Item number 2 is city raise and repair orders and demolitions.
We also received no raise repair orders since last meeting.
Okay. Item number 3, staff update.
I think I still work for you, but I'm not entirely sure. So,
Yes, still employed.
Awesome.
So we received back some of the RFQs for the updated intensive survey. We got those, I think, last week in the mail. I shipped them over to Jason via email. I think it's now time for us to start reviewing those, though I'm not as in touch with this process as Jason is. So I don't know if you wanted to give an update of our next steps, Jason?
That's brilliant. I forgot that you had sent them to me. So yes, I need to take a look at those. I spoke with Joe DeRose at SHPO last week. I asked him, hey, are you waiting on us to do anything? And he said, no, but clearly I think maybe we're on the line now to basically pick out one of these qualified, pre-screened organizations to start the work for us. So I think that's where we're at. I guess what I'd suggest is that I go through and read those, and at our next monthly meeting, I give you a little presentation with a recommendation, a summary of who all is interested. They've all been pre-screened by SHPO, and then you can pick and choose who you want to do the work, or to start the work anyway.
A question for you,
I
Jason.
think that's a good idea.
So there was an RFP specifically that was issued for this?
So the State Historic Preservation Office essentially takes the lead on that. And on their website, they issue an RFP, and SHPO defines, the work. And the work as they define it is to do an intensive survey of Green Bay. Now, in talking with SHPO separately, I think they're on board with this being potentially a 9-year project. But they pre-screened all the applicants and then forwarded their information to us. So we're not flying alone here, and we're effectively precluded from hiring our best friend who's never done it before. But I think the next step in the process is that we have to select one and figure it out from there.
Yeah, from a city perspective, we go through the applications we received, pick somebody, and then have to go through the contract negotiation. So at that point, we'd want to make sure that we have a couple options in case someone's like, no, I don't want to work on this huge multi-phase project. I doubt anyone would say that because that's just money. It's guaranteed money. But these are just the options that we have available to us. And then from there, we have to negotiate on the city side with our legal department. So there will be a couple steps, but it is up to preservation staff and then the Landmarks Commission to select who we think would be best.
Okay. I was just curious if the city had to do a public posting, that type of thing for an RFP and RFQ, depending on what the dollar value of it was.
No, we're exempt from that when they're done through a state entity.
Okay.
So we put a separate one out because they had to get filtered through SHPO because it's a state requirement. So I didn't have to do anything, and it was awesome.
Thanks for
Mark,
that.
you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Like I said, I haven't been involved for the last year or so, and I just wanted to get maybe a quick update as far as what the intensive survey encompasses. Are we looking at the entire city, a portion of the city? I just need just a quick overview of what we're thinking of with this intensive survey.
I think SHPO has authorized us up to $30,000. In the past, it's usually been a $25,000 limit per year. But at $30,000, I think the bids that we had received prior to this last go through were all just shy of $250,000. So, if you're dividing $225,000 by the top, you're looking at the better part of a decade to do the work. The work scope, though, is for the entire city. They may have to break it up in 7 or 8 or 9 chunks to do it year after year after year. But it's for the entire city to do a complete revision of the intensive lay that was done back in 1980, whatever it was.
I was there actually, 1988. I worked on it. Yay.
That's the year I was born, Mark. How does that make you
Hey,
feel?
you keep rubbing that into my face. Stop
I
it.
can't help it.
I know.
Okay. Anything else on the intensive survey? I do have another staff update for you all if we're done with the intensive survey.
Just a question then. So are you saying that the respondents to the RFP, that this commission then has to review those and make a selection? Or is that
What's
selection
between-
by city staff?
It can be either. I think that the best way is to have Jason go through and kind of give, the general overview of all of them just through his expertise and then present them here. So we can all make a decision together. I think it'll be an informational item. It won't be something that's open to the public for comments because it's just for us to decide what we feel most comfortable with because we'll be the ones working with them. So it won't be a voted on thing for the public. I think we just want to come to a common agreement together.
Okay.
I think we received 4 or 5 different qualified applicants, and I'm not endorsing anyone, but one of those applicants was Jennifer Lerke's company, who was speaking to you just a short while ago. My hunch is that since SHPO vetted all of them, they're all qualified.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one other comment. Is there anything as a commission, as members, that we can do ahead of time? I mean, being an alder in my district, I drive around quite a bit, and I look at properties that I deem as somewhat historic, and I don't know if that's if we're going outside of our purview there, but is there anything that we can do ahead of time to bring some information to the table to help with this project?
If you wanted to give some thought as to which part of the city you'd want to see done first, biggest bang for the buck, then, we should prioritize parts of the city. And I don't know if that would be a residential mid-century modern area like Mark's area or some other commercial portion of the city that maybe needs more love and investment. I don't know.
Usually this sort of thing, once we have a contract that we can negotiate through, is when we figure out how much staff time we can take on so we can get the cost down. Segments in the planning office, we offer up staff time to make maps, to do research. That way the company doesn't have to do them, and that usually speeds up the process. So if we have a willing commission to be a working commission, to take photos, to do surveys, that kind of stuff, it's just depending on what team we go with and how comfortable they are with us doing that work for them. But beyond that, we should definitely be brainstorming what Jason said. Where do we want to start? Because we have everywhere in the city to do. And if we want to concentrate on resurveying existing districts or if we want new ones right away, I think that's something that we should be considering maybe for next meeting.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Paul. Steph, I was going to ask you then, being in the community development department, and I was in maps at one time too, so I think maps are very important, but is there anything that, as far as a resource that your office could put together showing, let's say, the historic districts? I know that there are things out there, but, just different bits of material that we can look at. And, you could also even look at makeup of the city as far as when generally the homes were built. I don't know if there's something that we have in a database that could kind of divide the city into decades or such. Do you know what I'm trying to mention here or talk about?
Yeah, I can
Just
look
a
into
thought.
that and see if we have any data like that.
But I think that would be a good start for the commission to look at, just another tool that we could use. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if your GIS can pull buildings by age and kind of map it that way. That would be it would be a very interesting map to look at.
We'll see what we can do.
In your spare time.
Yes, all my abundant spare time.
Question for Stephanie, because it sounds like the applications went through you for the companies doing this. Have any of them presented plans about how to proceed with the city?
No, they were not asked to do that either. They just were asked to give their qualifications and then we will go from there. So that's why we want to look at some of the companies and see if any stick out as front runners or as absolutely no way we're going to hire them. And then from there, we can start having discussions with them about what their strategies would be. I mean, we can have presentations given if we wanted to, but it's usually just trying to find someone who we think can do the best job for how big of a project this is, because this is an enormous undertaking. The last intensive survey I worked on in Beloit was projected to be 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and that was considered a big project. So a 10-year project is enormous.
Well, you just mentioned something that could be valuable both for deciding on a company as well as how to proceed, would be asking them to prepare a presentation on their strategy. If this is what they do, then perhaps they know best, and rather than us directing them, we could go on their recommendations.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I guess.
Also, Mark, just to share with you, I was also born in 1988.
You guys are killing me.
Yeah, and I am 55 years old, so the math is solid.
So I guess, Stephanie, my question is, was it a request for proposals or was it a request for qualifications?
Qualifications.
Okay.
Okay, so moving along for our next staff update, I have Laura on the call with us. She is our public arts czar, I think is what we now lovingly call her. She runs the Public Arts Commission and she's in our department as well. And there has been a project she's been working on, which is to put a art piece that's a sculpture into an alleyway. So there was a public alley that was originally selected, but now after doing some due diligence, there are too many public utilities in that alley for this project to come to fruition. So she found another space that looks like an alley that isn't an alley that I will pull up here. And the Public Arts Commission is interested in using this space for the sculpture installation, but it's in our downtown historic district. Can you all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a nice space. Nice space.
So this is the county building that's on Walnut, and I'm sorry? Oh, yes. So she is looking to ask the artist to, she got a few requests in for when this was in a public alleyway, and now she's going to be asking them to redo that concept with this space instead with these dimensions. But since these are historic buildings, she wanted to come here and get some different criteria as far as what we'd want to see and not see, specific to materials and more specifically to how these will get attached to the buildings. So since we have our Public Arts Commission, I don't really want us to get in the business of policing or decide what this looks like. Similar to how we do signs, we want to know how it's attached and making sure that it isn't going to clash with the character of our downtown historic district. We don't necessarily want to be the ones deciding what this looks like. So I don't know if Laura, you want to chime in and give some more background information, but we're specifically looking to you guys to see what kind of criteria we should be asking for from the artist about attaching to the structures or not attaching to the structures. And then if there are any materials specifically that we don't want to see used here.
Thank you, Steph. That was a fantastic introduction to this project so far. A little bit of background. We received 7 submissions from artists. Most of them were proposing a piece that would span the full distance of the alley, so it would connect to both buildings. Most of them, I'm not an engineer, but most of them were using bolts anchored into the mortar of the buildings. So yeah, here's the examples of the pieces that were all submitted. Granted, I anticipate the majority of these designs to be adjusted a lot because public art is dependent a lot of times on the site that it's at. So changing the site is most likely going to change a lot of these proposals. But I really wanted to get your opinions on things that should be avoided to ensure that we can select a piece and have it fit at this space and not impede on any historical features of the buildings.
And we've already discussed that painting is out, so that we already have discussed for this space. So keep that in mind.
I had one question.
Sure.
This is Alder Stoyer. Hi, Laura. I was just going to ask that space offhand, or maybe Stephanie, you would know, as far as the ownership of that, is that split between both parcels there, or what? Who actually owns that piece of land?
The county, right?
Is that
So the county owns the light tan building, 305. And then actually NeighborWorks is the owner of the red brick Girl Scout building, and they own that kind of walkway garden space. That's all owned, actually.
okay.
The county, speaking with the county representative that I've been talking to, their leadership would be interested in selecting or having review and say over the artwork selection. So we've already been talking about maybe it is just something that is contained to just the red brick building on one side, so that we don't.
There'd be egress. Would you'd have egress back and forth through that area, or would it be? Would that be kind of blocked up, so to speak?
I think we would still want to maintain movement through that space. I don't think we would. I personally wouldn't want anything to impede with that sidewalk that goes through there.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
This is David. I do like the idea of placing some sort of artwork there, but I am very reluctant to have anything attached to the building. In particular, essentially because that's changing the character of the building, altering its historic nature. And some of those designs that I got to look at that were presented seems like they very much are attached and integral to the existing buildings.
I would concur, David. I mean, you have two very different buildings here. You have one that appears that the windows have been blocked in at some point. I don't know if there's any intent in the future to bring those windows back. But it's a pretty plain facade on the right. On the left, that's a pretty articulated facade on a building without it being the primary entrance. So I would be hard pressed to attach to the red brick building. And even if we did, I think we would want to certainly apply the same logic as we have for the signage, where any attachments would have to go into a mortar joint and not into the brick itself. So it could be repaired in the future. That's a little less restrictive on the building on the right, perhaps, just given the nature of those infill panels and so forth. But again, I don't know when that was and when that was done. Was there ever a building between these buildings, or was it always open?
Jason might be able to answer this. I thought that there was an attachment on the back of the county building, but I might be wrong.
No, I think this has always been empty. The county building, as Ian pointed out, has a number of, fenestration openings that have been blocked off. You can also notice, though, a large vertical ribbon that's been blocked off. And that's where the footprint of that building used to be like a C shape, but then they filled in the aperture there for, I don't know what, if it's an elevator shaft or who knows what. I do note that much the same effect could be achieved with independent foundations put into the ground between the buildings, creating like a pergola where you're not mounting it to either building. Some hesitations if you do mount to the building is, depending on how much weight you have cantilevered off of that face of the wall, that's going to put some stresses in the mortar joints itself. And then depending on the material as well, if it's steel, you don't want to have a rust stain effect on either building at any point. So those are some some questions, but again, if you went to independent footings and built yourself an independent structure essentially, then I think a lot of the concerns kind of disappear.
I concur with that. Too.
Likewise.
I do too. That's a good strategy.
That absolutely addresses my concerns.
I guess on the flip side though, if you actually put something on the roof of the red building and ran it across to the county building where, it's less critical, then, again, avoiding rust stains and the like, that might suffice as a different sort of foundation. Just spitballing.
I guess what happens if there's a change in ownership of the buildings? How is the artwork dealt with legally?
That's a good question.
So in the contract that we have set up, if ownership should change hands, the redevelopment authority is given first, I guess, grabs at purchasing the piece. Well, not purchasing, but removing the piece and then placing it elsewhere. So it goes back to the city ultimately, if that ownership does change.
What does NeighborWorks have to say about the whole concept, or are they behind the concept?
NeighborWorks, weirdly enough, was behind the concept.
Yeah, okay. I see that.
In a weird, they had reached out many months prior, last year actually, inquiring about maybe putting a sculpture or something within that kind of garden space there. And then through communicating, things just kind of dropped off. And then with our alley project, our past site fell through. So it kind of works out perfect. And I love the recommendation of putting individual footings within that space, and building something up. I think that still could create a lot of impact for that space without negatively impacting the historical buildings.
Yeah, I concur with that. I also agree with David and Ian and Jason too. Like, attaching to the building just either building doesn't sound like a real good idea. Like you said, like some sort of sculpture or freestanding thing. That way, if it ever needed to be moved or wanted to be moved, it could be without harming either building. I think that's a great idea myself.
I concur. I agree.
All right, anything else for Laura while she's on the call?
I don't believe so.
I guess I have a question, and this might be a dumb question, but since this is still having even just a freestanding footing within that space, since it is a historical section, would the piece still need to come to this committee for review, even if it isn't fixed into the buildings, or do you not really mind at that point? I'm more than willing to bring it to you guys again, but.
Jason is nodding his head very excitedly. We have a differing opinion on this. Yeah, I mean, at minimum, it'll be brought back as informational, but anything that goes into the ground in a district does need a COA. But again, I want to stress that we are not in the business of critiquing the design of a structure. I don't think that that's what this commission was established for. We just want to make sure that it fits in with the historic fabric of the district. So we'll let the PAC take the charge in approving design and artists and all that other crap. And then we'll deal with how it looks within the district that we protect.
I agree with you, Stephanie. I think it's a piece of public art. I think we have to have a different mindset about this in terms of it can be complementary to the buildings, but I don't think we want to enforce a mimicking or a mindset that would overly restrict the artist in what they're doing. I think attachment to buildings is one thing, but I think having a good balance between public art, historic buildings can be a perfect combination. It doesn't have to have a historic flavor to be appropriate for the area, is my 2 cents.
I
would
agree.
also like to see it brought before us, simply because we could be establishing or reaffirming the precedent that we're concerned about the historic nature. If this comes with, as Jason put it, the independent footings that do not touch the buildings, thereby we give it our approval based on that, which is within our scope. We're setting a very good precedent for this committee.
I would
Great.
sort of add to that comment, but maybe a little bit different take on it, that I think it's appropriate that we do see these things come before the commission, because even if somebody, and this is not related to this art project, but in the future, there's the potential that we would have a property owner could say, well, I'm going to build a tribute to the green monster at Fenway Park in front of my historic building. And I'm not attaching to my building. I'm building it completely separate of that, new footings, foundations. And so I just think that we need to be careful that we don't set a precedent by saying, well, if it's not attached to the building, we don't want to say in it. Because somebody can still do things that would adversely affect a historic property, even if they're not renovating the property itself. I think that the signage ordinance thing is something we've talked about a little bit, and when we reviewed the sign things, and so I think it's somewhat similar to that. But as a whole, and I haven't commented, I've been listening, and I've very much agreed with what most of you have all said, and my only comment would be that I think the intention here is great, and part of me says, going back to that photo of the alley, you've got a blank canvas on the right-hand side and a historic building on the left. So I think it's a great opportunity to use that canvas to display some artwork. That's kind of all I had. Mark, you had something else?
Thank you, Chair. From the city side, is that something, Stephanie, that we could look at as far as, I won't say an ordinance or such, but some planning jargon of some sort that we could put in so that would kind of cover what Paul was talking about? That's something that we could possibly do. I don't know, either through an ordinance. Pardon? Go ahead.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know. I'm like, Paul brought up a good point. I mean, an owner could decide to put some freestanding art somewhere else. Now, the fact is, this is the historic district that we're looking at.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay, yeah. So I agree. With our ordinance, we cover anything that's within a historic district. So I'm going to look at this the same way we would look at infill property, because just because the property is blank does not negate it from being part of our ordinance. So we'd still have the review power. I just want to make sure we don't overstep with design. The same that we do with a house. I mean, we're just looking to make sure it fits with the fabric of the community, not necessarily nitpick the details of it. So yeah, we have everything covered. If somebody want to put something ridiculous in their front yard of a historic district, we would have the review authority there too. So
it's a case by case basis, I would think too, that we could look at it and say, well, no, that's not going to work. At least to have that review possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only thing is, it's the same with the signs that we go through consistently with planning, is we don't want to restrict anyone's constitutional rights for expression and free speech. So that's where we have to be careful with that kind of stuff. But when it comes, we still get the review power either way, because it's in our district and we cover that district.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Laura?
I think I really like, I don't know who said it, but whoever said it, I think it should be something that is complementary to the building. And this might be a conversation that I have more with Jason afterward, but I would love to know the history of what was here so that I can include that information and send it on to the artists, because public art is hugely motivated by space. So to give that information to the artists and have that available to them so that they can potentially incorporate that history into the piece somehow, I think would be fantastic. So I don't know if you just want to shoot me an email, Jason, later. We can talk more about that outside of this.
Great, thank you.
With that, any other items from staff?
Nope, that was it.
Does anybody on the committee have any other items they want to bring up?
I have one. You know, as time goes on, we're always, eventually we're talking, tourism and such, historic districts, people coming into your city, all that type of thing. And I'm just looking at thoughts and ideas for either walking tours, historic walking tours, but virtual tours, any number of things. And you folks may have already talked about that, but I'm very much into drawing people from outside here to look at what we have. So wherever that conversation may go, I'd like to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 8th. And if that's it, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.